looking at it from that perspective, this still doesn't really work super well. There's a lot of internal logic issues that kind of pull you out, even disregarding, much like the writers did, disregarding the existing mythology. Well, hello again, nerds. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Nerd News. I am Dustin. These are the headlines worth talking about. In today's episode, we have all kinds of Blue Beetle updates and rumors. We are going to talk ever so briefly about the new Halo TV series, and Blade has found his way finally into the rumor mill. So we've got a lot to cover. Let's get right into it. We're going to start things off with music. Our first piece of music news is no follow-ups or anything here. We do have some new music to talk about. We have a new song from Opeth called Width of the Circle. This is also coinciding with an announcement of an extended version of their most recent record. The name of the album is Incauda Venenum. I'm pretty sure I'm saying that correctly. There is going to be, like I said, an extended release for this record. It is going to include approximately 4 to 5 new tracks, and bonus artwork and just all kinds of stuff. And just like the original release, this is going to be in both Swedish and in English. So you can find your copy, whichever language you prefer. You can definitely purchase that come May 13th. That's all we have for new music. We do have some tour stuff to get out of the way. So our first thing in touring is As I Lay Dying has announced a tour with Whitechapel, which is an interesting combination. The name of the tour is 2 Decades of Destruction. June 10th is where it starts in Las Vegas at the House of Blues, runs through July 17th in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, at the Diamond Ballroom. Tickets are not yet on sale. They do go on sale on the 1st, so Friday. So if you're watching this after it gets uploaded, then go buy your tickets now if you so desire. You can follow the link down in the description either way. And then we have the announcement of August Burns Red going out on a headlining tour. They will be supported by We Came as Romans, amongst others. They did just wrap up their tour with Killswitch Engage and Light the Torch, so very quick turnaround for these guys, as they are usually want to do. But the tour, it's called the Through the Thorns Tour. It starts July 15th in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, runs all the way through August 27th in Long Island, New York. Tickets, as always, can be found if you follow the link down in the description. So then we get past the touring section and we get into just regular old news, and we only have one piece, and you probably already know it, and it's a really sad piece. The Foo Fighters have recently lost their drummer Taylor Hawkins. Initial toxicology reports indicate, it would seem, that he did have a relapse, and that is what took his life. And it's a really rough time. Obviously, the Foo Fighters have canceled the rest of their tour, as this is kind of a huge blow to the band and everyone surrounding them. Hawkins was really well loved throughout the music community, and as evidenced by the fact that even Elton John is paying tribute to Taylor Hawkins. So just we have lost a titan of music, and we're going to take a moment before we get into the suggestions and just remember Taylor Hawkins. So as much as I don't like going from remembrance into suggestions, there was no other music, or no other music news, I guess. So we're gonna go from remembrance into suggestions, and this week's music suggestion is a simple one, and that is Foo Fighters' Color and the Shape. This is the record that kind of put them on the trajectory towards the top. It's not their first record, but it is the record with the most singles, I believe. So easily one of the greatest rock and roll records of the last 20 years, and definitely worth a listen. So go check out Foo Fighters' Color and the Shape, and pour one out for your homie. That was awkward. let's get into gaming and tech now. So we do have some follow-ups and corrections, just follow-ups, I believe. So first up is Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. We have news that it has been pushed back until spring of 2023. No real reason why that is, but it's also not a horrible thing. I've watched enough of, hey, what happened, to know that this could be a good thing, though also could be signs of something going horribly, horribly wrong. So hopefully it's the former and not so much the latter. But in that same vein, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild sequel, whatever that's going to be called, there's still no official title, also has been pushed back to spring of 2023. Generally speaking, when it's a Nintendo property, this is more of a good sign than a bad sign, but again, we won't know until it launches. And then, not in game delay news, we have Fortnite. This is a piece that I'm pretty sure we talked about when they tried this initially, but now it's become a regular part of the game. So what am I talking about? Fortnite, about a month ago, maybe even 2 months ago, tried a new game mode called the Zero Build mode. So you don't have to build, or you don't build at all. It's not an option to do. They included some new abilities in this mode and just kind of gave it a shot on a temporary basis. Well, it is no longer a temporary game mode. This is going to be a regular mode in Fortnite. So if you couldn't get past the building, like me, I just, for whatever reason, I like the run and gun stuff, but throw the building element in there and I just am way off my game. And so I think I'm going to dive back into Fortnite, probably on this week's stream, not gonna lie. Anyway, so yeah, it is now a permanent part of Fortnite, so you can go check out the link in the description for the official announcement as such. We do have one new game trailer to talk about in this episode, and that is Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters Spirits Released is the name of the game. This comes from IllFonic, the same developer who brought us the Friday the 13th, the game. Also, they did Predator Hunting Grounds, so pretty cool credentials there, and a pretty cool idea behind this, because it's a multiplayer game that you can be either a Ghostbuster or a ghost. So pretty awesome. Go check out the trailer. It looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. IllFonic is maybe not the most prestigious of developers, but they've got a pretty decent track record. Friday the 13th had a lot of lofty goals that they just couldn't get funding for. Predator has accomplished some pretty cool things. Maybe not the most greatest things ever, but you know, it is what it is. So this, I think, is just going to be another rung up from where they were before, and where they were was pretty nice. So that's what we have for trailers. Let's get into news on the gaming section. We have Fable. We have a new report, and this technically could have gone into the updates or the follow-up section rather. But this is a little endemic of something larger, so I put it in. It's into the regular news. So Fable, we have a recent report from a developer who is no longer with the company that is giving us the new Fable game, and it sounds like Microsoft is doing some more chicanery. Not the same. So when I first saw this article and got into it, it did seem like it was just going to be a little bit more of the issues that we saw with Halo, in that they have this development studio, and the development studio has to conduct business in a way that Microsoft dictates. And so Microsoft is very big on having temporary employees, and with laws being what they are, you can only have a temporary employee for so long before you have to make them a full-time employee, in which case you have to provide them with more pay and benefits and so on and so forth. So in order to avoid that, Microsoft likes to have temp employees for as long as, for the maximum length possible before they have to become full-time employees, and then swap out all the temps for new temps. It's obviously not done good things for them, as we can see in Halo, but this is not exactly that. This, it does seem like there is something akin to that, and maybe even that explicitly. It's just not laid out in this report from this former employee. But we do see that they are giving IPs to studios who are going to come in cheaper and not necessarily have the most experience and potentially give us the best possible product. So Playground Games is the developer we're talking about very explicitly, and they don't really have any. They've done Forza, they've done racing games, they've done fairly well with that even. Putting out a new Forza every 2 years, I believe, this studio. And now they've been given Fable, and they don't know how to translate the information, the knowledge that they have of making racing games over to making an action RPG. Nobody in this studio has ever done this before, so it just seems like the new Fable could, I mean, there's still no release date for it yet, so we're not going to talk about setbacks or anything like that just yet, but it does sound like it is going to be a long time before we see this game. At which point, it seems kind of like a moot point in trying to save money by giving the project to a cheaper developer when that cheaper developer takes twice as long to make the game. You could have given it to an experienced developer who made it fast in roughly the same cost to the company overall, and then even put the clout of that developer's name on the package and potentially sell more units. So I don't know, this just seems Microsoft is a little shady these days. That is what we have on this piece, and that is the end of the news for the gaming and tech section. We do have a suggestion for this section. Gaming and tech suggestion this week is Kirby's Dream Land or Kirby's Adventure Land. Either one, or Kirby's Adventure rather, I'm sorry. Either one, fantastic games. Dreamland was the first Kirby game ever, and it was on the original Game Boy, so if you can find that ROM, or if you have one, dig it out of storage and go play that. It is definitely worth going back to. Adventure, though, is the first NES, the first regular console game. Also, I believe the first game that you actually have the ability to use the bad guys' abilities when you swallow them. So that sounds so weird. Anyway, go play Kirby's Dream Land or Kirby's Adventure. That is our suggestion for gaming and tech this week. Comic books and books. I honestly thought this section was not going to exist this week, and then we found some news, so we have a couple of trailers to get out of the way. First thing is Hulk versus Thor, Banner of War. Could be great. I really don't hold my breath with Marvel stuff anymore. The trailer looks like it's going to be good, but that's what a trailer is supposed to do. So whether or not it actually comes out and is something that is worth reading very much remains to be seen, but it looks like it's definitely worth at least checking out. Our other trailer is Batman Beyond the White Knight. We talked about this previously. This is our first look trailer. We also, there's two links down in the description for this one. The first link is the trailer. The second link is some pages from issue number 2. So yeah, super interested. I'm probably going to wait for the trade to come out on this one. That's what I've done with the last 2 White Knight books, or 3 White Knight books rather. So probably what I'm going to do with this one too, but also looks fantastic. Sean Gordon Murphy is doing wonderful work. Moving on. That's all we have, actually. So let's get into suggestions. Our suggestion this week for comic books and books is Detective Comics Volume 2. This is the prequel to the Death of the Family books. We talked previously in suggestions about the Death of the Family books. This is Faceless Joker. This is where Joker removes his face. This is the book in which that happens. And then he kind of disappears, and we've got the doll maker and stuff to deal with. But some pretty good detective writing as far as Batman stuff is concerned, and I really, really enjoyed this book. So you should do the same and go check out Volume 2 from Detective Comics. TV streaming, we have some stuff. So we do have a couple follow-ups. First and foremost, in the follow-up section, we're talking Moon Knight. Happy Moon Knight Day. I have yet to watch episode 1, so we will probably be talking about 1 and 2 next week. But we do have a little bit of a follow-up. This I don't know if this is really on many people's radar. That's why I'm putting it in today's broadcast. But this is not in the proper MCU. Moon Knight is in its own separate side universe, pocket universe, whatever you want to call it. Partially because of the violence and the more mature rating, but also partially so that they can experiment, it would seem. There have been reports saying that they're going to try things in the Moon Knight series that they wouldn't otherwise do in the MCU. So hopefully that bodes well for the future of the MCU, because they need a little bit of help these days, not gonna lie. So now we're going to talk about, we're still in follow-ups, we're going to be talking about Halo, the series. Episode 1 came out last week, and I heard very mixed things about it. I was unable to watch it until the end of the weekend, so everyone already put out their hot take on the Halo series, and so we're just going to do a real quick little honest nerd situation. So, first and foremost, when you're watching a piece of fiction, when you're indulging in some fiction, the first and most important thing about that piece of fiction is the internal logic. Does everything that they give you inside of this one IP, inside of this episode, inside of this series, what have you, does it make sense on its own logic? If it is also part of a larger fandom, if it is part, if there's more to it than just this one piece of fiction, then the secondary trait, first is internal logic, second is mythology. Does it make sense inside the mythology that is already pre-existing? The source material, does it honor the source material, that kind of stuff. Looking at it from that perspective, this still doesn't really work super well. There's a lot of internal logic issues that kind of pull you out, even disregarding, much like the writers did, disregarding the existing mythology for Halo. If you just go on based on the merits of this series, then they're painting Master Chief to be something that he really is not, even inside of this, inside of just what they have for episode 1. The primary thing that I'm thinking of is they've created this perfect soldier who then turns on everything he knows. Based off of potentially just touching a thing and then maybe having a memory, or what they write off as visions in the dialogue very explicitly, until all of a sudden it's not just visions and he knows it's at once gives you too much information and also not enough, because we don't need to see Master Chief's face, especially not in the first episode. Mandalorian, we went 3 or 4, maybe even 5 episodes before we saw Mandalorian's face. So I understand the desire to show Master Chief's face. I understand the reasoning behind showing Master Chief's face. I just think that the execution of doing it, being as it is such a big deal, was very poorly done. But so, internal logic. If you have this perfect soldier, then communication with base, communication with commanding officers, with whoever is the person in charge of this soldier program, at the very least, should always, it makes a lot more logical sense that communication would exist in a much more conducive way. And they're just... It's just all over the place. I can't even pin down all of these exact specifics, because the broad strokes are so off that the specifics don't even matter after a certain point, because none of this would have happened in the original mythology, and none of this would have happened the way they set up the first half of this episode. So there's a lot of stuff that's really butting heads against itself. There is potential that this could get better. From what I've heard about episode 2, that's not exactly the case. Also, the Covenant taking in a human as their own seems very much out of place, because I'm pretty sure, at least in the again, this is separate mythology because it's the original mythology. In the original mythology, they didn't have any experience with humans, from what I remember, until they ran into Master Chief. But yeah, okay, maybe that happened somehow. I don't know. There's just, again, the broad strokes are the wrong color and in the wrong place at this point. So I cannot recommend going into Halo. Even based on its own merits, it's still a weak science fiction series. I will probably watch another 2 to 3 episodes just in case it does turn around and get better, but as it stands right now, not a strong series. So that brings us to the nerd rant done. We're over it. Halo is what it is. So we do have one other follow-up for TV streaming, and that is Archive 81 over on Netflix. Has not been renewed for a second season, which is hot garbage. Netflix does have a pretty good track record, thanks in large part to Mike Flanagan, with horror series. So why they would not renew a series that was #1 streaming across all platforms, like it had the largest numbers across all platforms for about 2 to 3 weeks straight, and then they don't renew it for a second season, even after leaving it on a cliffhanger, like that's just bad form, Netflix, bad form. Like, I understand you're getting a lot of competition, a lot of solid competition, but that doesn't mean you can't also still be taking minor risks. I mean, you're taking large risks with other properties that we don't talk about here on this show because they're not worth giving breath to, but you're not going to take a chance on something that legitimately was doing well. That just doesn't make any sense to me. So yeah, Archive 81 done. And that's what we've got for follow-ups. We do have some new news. Actually, no, I take that back. We have one more follow-up that was that was announced this morning. So it's in a different place on the notes, and I apologize. But Umbrella Academy is our next follow-up. We just got the announcement that Vanya Hargreaves is in fact going to be coming out as trans and becoming Victor Hargreaves in season 3. Vanya, the white violin, if you remember, is played by Elliot Page. Elliot Page relatively recently, I guess, has come out as trans, and so it was announced shortly after Elliot made the announcement that the character that Elliot plays is going to remain a cisgendered female. Well, apparently that's not the case anymore. So very interesting, potentially going to be a get woke, go broke kind of situation for Netflix on this one as well. But that is what we have for follow-ups. And so now let's get into news. Our first piece of news for TV streaming is a new series called Dark Matter. Joel Edgerton is set to star. It is going to be written and showran by Blake Crouch, who is the author of the book that the series is going to be based on. So that's pretty good. I've only read the synopsis of this book. I haven't actually read the book. It's being billed as like one of the best science fiction books to have come out recently. It's pretty light on the science fiction elements and it's from the synopsis anyway, fairly light on the science fiction elements and a little more thriller aspects. So makes sense that something like this would make its way into popular culture. There is not a release date just yet. So, I mean, as we get closer, I'm sure we'll do at least one more follow-up on this once the release date gets announced. And then we're moving over. Oh, this is kind of a double announcement. So James Bond, or specifically MGM, who owns the James Bond franchise, was bought out by Amazon last week for $8.5 billion. Amazon's first thing they're going to do now that they owned the intellectual property of James Bond, at least in the live action film kind of arena, is they're going to do a reality game show with it. This is so weird. So this is it's the name of the show. I guess we should start there. The name of the show is going to be 007's Road to a Million. So it's basically groups. So it's like The Amazing Race or any of those other shows like that. You get groups of people and they're going to go to locations throughout the world in hopes of winning a lump of money. So it seems like this show was already in the works because all of the pre-production and stuff has been done long before Amazon purchased MGM. So now that they have the rights to the 007 name and franchise, they're just tacked that onto this thing. It's probably not going to wasn't going to do well at all previously. Now it'll probably do kind of well for the first season, maybe. Because it is set up to go to all these iconic locations throughout the world that are that James Bond locations from the movies and such. So, I mean, that will be at least have some sort of novelty for the first season. If it's going to go past that at all, oof, very much remains to be seen. But this is the first thing that Amazon's doing, and I think this is further proof that they are going to be squandering all of the IPs that they purchase. Moving right along, we have another announcement. This one is for HBO Max, a new series in the It universe. This new series is going to be called Welcome to Derry. It is going to be a prequel to the Andy Muschietti It movies. Andy Muschietti and his wife, Barbara, and their writing partner, what is his name? Oh, I lost it. Jason Fuchs are going to be producing and writing, and I believe even Fuchs is going to be directing some of these episodes. So it will have very strong ties to those Muschietti movies, the It and It Chapter 2. So far, not a whole lot is known about Welcome to Derry, but the little bit that we do know seems to imply that it is going to revolve around a character named Bob Gray, who is from the original Stephen King novel and was alluded to in the Chapter 2 Andy Muschietti movie. So pretty deep on the lore, hopefully. All I want to know is, are we going to see the giant turtle that vomited forth the universe? Because I think that's some of the craziest elements of those books, but or of that book specifically, I guess. Well, that's all we got on this one. And then we have nothing else for news, so let's get into suggestions. Our suggestion today is actually recommendation from a viewer. Manly25 over on the TikTok has requested a spotlight, if you will, for Young Justice Season 4. So if you are an HBO Max subscriber, or if you have other means of getting this and you are appreciative of the DC animated universe, then Young Justice is obviously a series you probably have already watched. But if you have yet to dive into such things, then Young Justice is a great place to start. Season 4 is actually very, very solid. It ended December of last year. It has yet to be picked up for a 5th season. If you remember, though, Season 4 was a little bit of a gift to fans and was announced a little while back, and then when it happened, it was kind of a big deal, and now it's back in limbo. So theoretically, they could leave it where it is, though there is possible way to get a season 5. So if it gets enough attention, perhaps it will get a season 5. So go give Season 4 of Young Justice some attention, because it is absolutely worth your time. So that was TV streaming section. And before we get into the movies section, I just want to jump in real quick here, nerds, and remind you that if you are watching on the YouTube or on the Rubble or any of the other visual options, then you can push the thumbs up and do the things and let the algorithm gods know that you like what's going on here, so that they can continue to give you all of the nerdy goodness. Also, a reminder that this Friday, April 1st, we will be doing another live episode. So if you want to join the conversation and contribute your news to the news, then you can join me live, youtube.com/generalnerdy, round about 7:30 Mountain Standard Time here in the States. And the other thing is, there's merch up on the website, generalnerdy.net. You can go buy your nerdy swag and do all the things. And that being said, without any further ado, nerds, let's get into the movies section. Now let's talk about movies. So in movies, we have mostly just follow-ups, and so let's get into the follow-ups. Blue Beetle is our first follow-up, and this one's actually kind of lengthy. So we have the announcement that Sharon Stone and George Lopez have both been cast in the movie. Sharon Stone is going to be playing a character created just for the movie, though related to a character from the Blue Beetle mythology. Her character's name is going to be Victoria Cord, K-O-R-D. If you are familiar with the Blue Beetle lore, then you will recognize that last name because it belongs to Ted Cord, who was the original Blue Beetle in the comic books. So that has led into some rumors, which we will get to in the rumor mill for sure. But then George Lopez is set to play Uncle Rudy Reyes, who is the uncle to Jaime in the mythology. And the movie is still set for an August 18th theatrical release in 2023, not this year, next year. So our next follow-up is awesome one. Real quick, Deadpool 3 follow-up. We do have, it's all but officially been announced. I mean, the two of the main people involved in this have announced it. So Ryan Reynolds and Leslie Ugams, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that, have made it known that she will be returning as Blind Mag, and that's freaking awesome. I realize it just said Blind Mag, but I meant to say Blind Al, and I'm sorry, but this is the way we're editing the episode, so... she and Ryan Reynolds both have confirmed as much on their Twitters, so if you want to go see my evidence, then you can do that by following them on the Twitters. Next, we're talking about Morbius, and there is kind of spoiler territory ahead, though we're not going to talk in detail about this, so kind of not really spoilers alert, I guess, but... it does seem that the two post-credit scenes have both been leaked online, seemingly from the test screenings that have been happening over the last approximately 2 months, I believe. And yeah, it's kind of there again, even if we were to explicitly talk about what's happening in these, there's nothing in these that's really going to give away what happens in the movie. It's just we get a little bit more Michael Keaton action. So I almost wanted to put this into the rumor mill because it is leaks, but I'm pretty sure this is legit. Like, there's so little doubt in my head it would be like a 99.9999999% likelihood that this is real. You can find these two clips on the internet. It is not super hard, so you don't have to really dig that far, but they do exist. The movie does come out this week. And yeah, just interesting, I guess. And then our other follow-up is for the Teen Wolf reboot movie, which is the culmination, it seems, of the series, but not really. This is just casting stuff. We're not going to get into what the potential of this movie actually is, but this is casting stuff. We do have Ian Bohen, Kylan Rambo, both reprising their roles from the MTV series, and also Tyler Hoechlin is in negotiations to do the same. So... no release date. No, they're not even into production just yet because they're still finalizing contracts. There were a slew of other casting announcements for this movie as well, but they were all for new characters. It wasn't, the same stuff. So if you are interested, follow the link in the description, and we're moving right along. Next, we have trailers to get out of the way. So first, we have the new Top Gun Maverick trailer. This movie is still set for May 27th. We get a little bit more Miles Teller in this trailer, which is pretty awesome because that's what this movie should be about, even though it's probably not going to be. Thank you very much, Tom Cruise. But still, going to be fun, going to be worth a watch when it comes out. And then the big one, and I felt so weird putting this in as a trailer because it's not really a trailer, it's a cut scene. The Batman has released their Joker scene that has been cut from the movie. There are about 17 different channels on YouTube that have posted it in its entirety. It is a little over 5 minutes long. We don't really see the Joker in this, even though we do. Like, he's never in focus unless it's like an extreme close-up on his eyes or something. Very effective. I really feel like... So, the reasoning... Let's get into this. The reason why Matt Reeves took this scene out of the movie is because he said it kind of interrupted the pacing of the movie. Where he had it really kind of was redundant in a lot of ways and slowed things down, which if you already have a 3-hour plus movie, maybe don't slow things down. So I can understand that. But my postulation for this is maybe the other things that covered this information previously in the movie could have been removed and kept the Joker. Because this is probably the best rather fan servicey thing from the movie, and it was completely removed. Like, it's just, it doesn't make any sense. It's fantastic. You should actually absolutely go watch this. This gives me a lot more hope going forward, though that hope comes with a little asterisk because Matt Reeves has made it explicitly known that we might not ever see the Joker again in his universe. We very likely won't see him in the next movie. I would be surprised if that was the case, but that is the words that he's giving us. So very potentially this could just be a one-off, really awesome scene. And because you don't have to deal with Pattinson's cardboard Batman as much, because most of this is Barry, I don't know how to pronounce his last name and I apologize, but he does fantastic. Because most of this is Barry, and Pattinson is supposed to be introspective in this scene, like, it works so much better than a lot of that movie. So yeah, very strange choice to have cut this and kept the other stuff instead of the other way around. But that is what we have for trailers. Again, really weird putting that in as trailers. And we have a real quick breaking news piece. I was just informed of this while filming today, that Bruce Willis is retiring from acting. He has been diagnosed with aphasia, and that's all we know right now. So we will probably touch on this one more time after I can get a little bit more research behind it next week. But yeah, Bruce Willis retiring from acting. That's pretty big. And that's actually all of the news for the movies section. So that gets us into suggestions, and going in line with our the quick and nerdy that I just posted. Today's this week's movie suggestion rather is going to be Seven. I am a huge David Fincher fan. I think Seven is probably the best example of modern film noir. And Fincher is amazing. There's so many video essays. There are so many analyses of this movie on why it's one of the greatest cop movies ever, that you can honestly spend hours on YouTube just analyzing this movie with the people who wrote the essays and such. That it stands as evidence of itself that you should be watching this movie. It does come with, again, a little bit of an asterisk because this is a very graphic movie. So if you are, light on the stomach, maybe don't go watch it. But if you are a fan of cinema, if you are a fan of fantastic cinematography and writing, or just Brad Pitt, or just Morgan Freeman, or, anyone else just go watch this movie. It's so good. So good. And that's our movie suggestion. Okay. Rumor mill. Let's do this. Rumor mill, we have a few Blade rumors. It's kind of 2 rumors, but we're going to break it into 4 because the first one's kind of big and the second one has 2 different elements, very easily 2 different elements. So the first rumor is that supposedly there's going to be multiple timelines that they're telling this story in. So those multiple Blade timelines is going to be the 20s, the 30s, and then modern era. So that's effectively our first rumor, and then our second rumor is tied to this. It's the continuation. The modern timeline is going to include Kit Harington's Dane Whitman, also known as Black Knight. We did see at the end of Eternals when Kit found the Ebony Blade, or I guess Dane found the Ebony Blade, and we heard Mahershala Ali's voice say, "Are you ready for that?" So there's a lot of indications that this is legit. So let's go back to the first part. Multiple timelines. Yeah, I don't have any real reason to say one way or the other, though the source is really good. So we're going to give it a slightly more than halfway. We're going to say about 55% likelihood that is the case. Even though these 2 rumors are technically the same rumor, I feel like there's a little bit more validity to one half than the other half. So 55 for the first half, 70% likelihood that we will be seeing Kit Harington in this movie. And that's honestly being like very doubting. If I'm being even more honest and it's slightly less objective, then I would say it would be more of a 90%, but it is still very much rumor. It is only one source saying it. It is a fantastic source. It's just the one source that is saying this stuff. So we can't go as high as I want to just because of, likelihoods and so on and so forth. So, 70% likelihood we will see Kit Harington's Black Knight in this movie. And then the other two rumors for Blade are the first being that we're going to see Dracula in this movie. Whether or not he's going to be the main antagonist, I don't believe that's the situation. But that is the rumor. And then the second half of that rumor is Giancarlo Esposito is rumored to be playing Dracula, which would be really, really cool, but very much rumor. So as far as the first half of this, 50-50, because no real reason to go one way or the other yet. There's not a whole lot of corroborating evidence. And then because the Giancarlo thing is dependent on the first one, we can only go as high as 50%. And because that would be really awesome, we're just going to go up to 50% just because I want to, because that's the way it goes. So our next rumor is Guardians of the Galaxy. Maybe 3 or the holiday special. That's up to you to decide, apparently. But the rumor is as follows. They are filming something for Guardians of the Galaxy right now. Be that Volume 3 or the holiday special is uncertain. But apparently on set has been seen Kevin Bacon. So there is a rumor that we're going to get a Kevin Bacon cameo in the next Guardians of the Galaxy at some point. Again, it does not specifically say if it's the holiday special or the movie, or the Volume 3 rather, because it's unclear which is being filmed at the moment. Though the code name for the shooting project has something to do with Christmas, so I would say probably the holiday special, but again, not in the actual rumor. So there are other examples of Marvel doing this in the Guardians, and James Gunn specifically, in the Guardians movies. So this is not exactly new territory, but it's not a great source. It's kind of a garbage source, honestly. I would not be surprised if this happened, but we don't have enough evidence one way or the other. So we're going to put it at 50% because that's where we go when there's no reason to go in one direction or the other. Our next rumor has to do with the legendary MonsterVerse. Son of Kong is apparently going to be the next movie in the MonsterVerse, according to this rumor. There's a lot of reason to not think this is the case. So my first reason for going low, and we haven't got there yet, but first reason for going low on this is because the way these movies are built, they would have to introduce a mate for Kong. And they haven't done that yet. And if they're going to do that in the same movie that then we get the Son of Kong, I feel like that's a poor choice, and I'm just going to hope that they're going to try and avoid obvious poor choices. So there's that. There's also the larger MonsterVerse at hand. So we've got the Godzilla. We haven't really had much experience with any of the other kaiju that are still alive. We've seen that there are, I think the last count was something like 12 different kaiju around the world in this universe. And we've really only explored Godzilla and King Kong. So I feel like the more logical next step in the MonsterVerse is to have a movie where we have some other kaiju elements and then maybe introduce the idea of Son of Kong, and then the next movie past this would be Son of Kong. That would make a lot more sense. But just all indications, and then the source for this is just really not great. So we're going 30% likelihood that Son of Kong is the next MonsterVerse movie that is coming out the gate from Legendary. Our next rumor has to do with the DC movie timeline and the release dates. We did just get that big shakeup a couple of weeks ago. It might have even been a month ago at this point. where everything kind of got shuffled around, and that put the Flash at the back end of the release dates instead of at the front end. And so the rumor is that that is largely due to Ezra Miller. As we have seen recently, Ezra was arrested in Hawaii for reasons. He's been arrested previously during the production of this movie. The rumor is he's just not well, which obviously that is the case. And because of his mental strain, or whatever excuse you're going to give to this Hollywood celebrity, because of whatever is going on behind the scenes, that is the largest factor of why these movies got rearranged. What we've been told explicitly is that it just wasn't going to be done. They have a lot more post-production to do, and it wasn't going to be able to meet its original release date. But that being said, that doesn't mean you have to move it as far back as they did. I don't know exactly how his personal life is affecting the release of these movies, so that's kind of something that's really difficult to understand, and also kind of factors against this. But we did get the move, we did get the cycle, and also as it relates to this, apparently that means that we have to cut Michael Keaton out of a couple of scenes in other movies, because he was supposed to be introduced in The Flash and then also be in these other DC movies. But if he's not introduced in The Flash, and then all of a sudden he's just in these other movies, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. So they had to do a lot of re-editing for everything. And so, yeah, that is apparently the behind the scenes. So what is the likelihood that this is the case? Again, middle of the road. This is a really good source, but I really don't understand why his personal life is affecting the release of this movie, because his personal life isn't affecting the release of the new Fantastic Beasts movie, and that's in just the same kind of predicament. So it just, there's certain things that don't really equate. This is the only reason we're going as high as we are on this one, is because the source is so good. So 50% likelihood that this is the case. And the unfortunate thing about this too is there's never going to be a way to confirm this. There's never going to be, which is another reason why I didn't go any higher than 50, because we'll never know. We'll never 100% know that it was because of Ezra Miller. So that's just how we're going to have to leave it. And that just sits really bad in my mouth. And then we have a Blue Beetle rumor that sounds super freaking likely. So again, if you remember, Sharon Stone has been cast to play a new character to the universe, and that is Victoria Cord, who is the wife of, apparently, Ted Cord. And Ted Cord is the original Blue Beetle in the mythology. So the rumor has it that we will be seeing Ted Cord as the actual villain in the movie, and Sharon Stone will just be kind of a front for him. So this seems pretty cool. I don't know that he's going to be the villain. I do believe, though, that we will see him in this movie. So going there, we're going to put that at 70%. Him being the villain, 50-50. It could go either way. But very probably, this is my projection, very probably what's going to happen is we're going to see Victoria as the villain, because she's going to be trying to exact some sort of revenge on the new Blue Beetle because her husband died or something. And we're going to see the original Ted Cord in flashback sequences because of, again, the revenge that his wife is trying to exact. So yeah, I think we're going to see Ted Cord. I don't think he's going to be the villain, but I think we're going to see Ted Cord. And there is so much more news and rumors for us to talk about, nerds, but you're going to have to go to the previous episodes in order to do it. So go check out the other episodes in the playlist, or, the things that are popping up right here to the side of my face. You can click or tap those. Do that. Join me in the conversation. Find me on the socials. Do all of the things. Thank you very much, nerds. Before we go, always